We're live. We're live. I see the yellow thing. Hello, everyone. My name is Liz. I am running Afterlife Wandering Souls for two lovely players today. I am doing this for the Gauntlet. Um, and I am going to let my awesome players introduce themselves, starting with Linda, because I see you first on my screen. This is the only way I pick my players, by the way they're ordered on my screen.
Perfect. All right, well, I'm Linda Cadega. I am here to play a super cool game about souls wandering in the afterlife. You can find me on Twitter @_LINFINN. Yeah, very excited to finish this game.
Awesome. And Yoshi.
Yeah, I'm Yoshi Krillman. My pronouns are he, him, and you can find me on Twitter @Yoshi Krillman. Thanks.
Awesome.
I should have mentioned I'm Linda. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. I should know better, and yet here I am.
Oh, yeah. And I'm Liz, and she, her also, or, oh, great overlord, please don't kill my character. I also accept that. Whatever you want to, choose to say. Now, let's talk a little bit about what happened last time, just in case people are just tuning into this episode. So actually, I think it would be great if you could both introduce your characters, and then we'll get a little bit into a recap of what happened last time. And since I made Linda go first, then Yoshi has to go first this time. Tell us about your character, Yoshi.
Sure, I'm playing Echo, and Echo uses they, them pronouns. Echo, I imagine, is somebody who is probably in their early 20ish, a little bit androgynous. They wear sort of very comfortable, functional clothing. So it's very simple things that you might pick up at the Goodwill, or things like a sweatshirt, type things like that level of comfort. Things. They are the shield, and they have a memory about when they were in the city and sought the darkest place. And so that memory was about after an explosion in a city, going and finding shelter and safety and taking care of some other lost kids who got separated from their families.
Awesome. And Linda?
Hi, I am playing Grayson. Grayson also uses they, them pronouns. I imagine them in more their 30s, and they are wearing all dark gray, black clothing with embroidery in it, and the embroidery is gold and red, and sometimes gray and black, but very subtle in a way. It's a dark red. They have scarves and ribbons wrapped all around them, and that's sort of the look of their costume that they wear. And the scarves and ribbons flow out from Grayson's costume, and they can can obey her or them. They can obey them, and they can be sentient and move around, and they can also become very, very rigid and sharp and sword-like in that way. Grayson is a little impulsive and kind of a brute, but they are kind of fun to do. Their memory is that they once found a gift from someone else they thought was lost, and that gift was an ancient library that an old queen had gifted the realm, and it was lost, and then Grayson found it. They also wear an Omari burqa, which is a face mask that helps shield their eyes from the sun.
Sweet. So, Grayson and Echo, last time you both entered the Drowned Lands, and Grayson had an interesting interaction with the pool, the portal to get in here, but eventually you both were sucked through with your fellow crewmates, Harper, but Harper has since left the Drowned Lands, and you both decided to stay around for a while. Harper had another appointment she had to go to. you both completed a kind of task for the merfolk there. At least when you entered the drowned lands, you find that you came to this large, giant swamp with like dark, murky water, and within the water were these merfolk people with long eel tails and mouths filled with teeth and dark black eyes and kind of corally skin. And you met their leader, and you found out that someone related to the leader was was killed in some way. You found out that it was because of a witch. You went and you dealt with said witch, and some epic things happened. For example, the world's greatest high dive, um, and a very sort of bloody chase down a giant tree. Um, and you all brought the heart that the witch was keeping and the witch's body back to the merfolk, and they thanked you for your service. And they offered to let you stay with them for a while because you both felt there was still you needed to explore here. During last session, Echo, you had a break, didn't you? Do you want to? Oh, sorry, Grayson, you had a break. Honestly, I just look at the character keeper, I see the first name, and because they're all kind of new, I just pick a name and I say it. But Grayson, yes, the wonderful Linda, your character had a break. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a break is when a character experiences a moment of their lived life in the Tenebris. And Grayson experienced a moment in time when they were being kind of bullied and picked on by their older brothers, including their own twin. And Grayson lashed out, and they tried to, or they did, they fought back. And they were playing in the kitchen, and one of the brothers accidentally splashed hot water on like small baby teenage Grayson. We didn't quite specify time, but I'm thinking like 8, maybe 9. And Grayson has scars on their neck and upper body because of that incident, and it's obviously never gone away, but it's very, very old. And this break happened when Grayson had to pull down some of their scarves and some of their coverings in order to grow gills, which was a very painful process that reminded them of this moment in time.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that memory. Yeah, so Grayson kind of, you feel like you've gotten what you can out of the beyond here, at least. There's always still more to explore. But you, Echo, definitely still feel like there's something you're searching for here, some wisdom that you can learn. So you decide to spend some time with the merfolk. But then I would actually like to ask you, Echo, what's one of the most startling traditions or kind of cultural experiences that you had with the merfolk while you've been here so far?
Startling traditions that I've seen or rituals or something. What do I like? I like things around food. So I think what this has to do with is like when they gather food or for a meal or something, it's maybe not every meal. Maybe it's the first meal of the day or something like that, that there is some ritual and some gathering, and that everybody who can attends, and there's some phrases that I don't understand yet because they're saying it in a language I don't understand. Um, and so those things kind of get said and repeated, and it's not a very long thing, but it's something that happens every day where people kind of get together and see each other, and not everybody always shows up at the same, like not everybody shows up because it's again the people who can attend, but you see a lot of the same people every day, and it gives people a chance to connect before they eat. And you'll then, once the ritual's over, people will eat go into their separate little things and talk and gather and things like that. And so I think it's shocking for Echo because I think Echo was mostly a loner and somebody who didn't have a huge community and family. And so like it's very different to see not just like a family, but like a big community food gathering type thing, ritual that brings everyone together.
I like that. Grayson, you and Echo actually, you both met somebody at one of these like kind of breakfast gatherings or like, first meal gatherings. And this merfolks took specifically a liking to you. You remember that they were really quite alien and a lot of them were cold and standoffish, but this one specifically just seems curious about you and wanting to know more. Who is this merfolk and kind of what are they like? I mean, do you enjoy having this merfolk tag along with the two of you?
I want to say this merfolk. I'm going to say they're very young, possibly a child. And I think that they have like a watery name, but I think that they sort of it sort of like roughly translates in words we can speak to something like saffron, more or less. So this guy's name is Saffron. They're a young child. And I think that they're brightly colored in a weird way, like their colors dull over time. So this one has like really colorful heel parts. And I'm gonna say that Grayson finds them like begrudgingly very fun and cute and like enjoys like, okay, whoa, Yoshi, whoa. I wanna like just say that Grayson will never admit it, but they totally are just like pretty hyped about having like a little kid following them around, even though Grayson's like a little bit like tries to be standoffish, but will also just be like, yeah, let me show you everything. Let me tell you about that. Let me explain this thing to you. Like, sure, you can ride on my shoulders, that's fine. Like, but it's one of those things where the minute anyone like sees them doing like interacting with the child in this way, they will just be like, okay, that's enough. Go play. Bye-bye. I don't know you. So it's not quite as abrupt as that, but it's definitely just like that. I think that's how Grayson is.
I totally think too then that like Saffron has at one point like found some kelp and like wrapped it around their waist to kind of like look like the flowing scarves that you have. So like one day when like Saffron just comes to pick up the both of you, they just show up with like these like flowing kelp scarves around their waist, just like woo.
Grayson is so pleased, so delighted, and they will never ever tell them that. Anyone, they will not tell.
Fine. Well, yeah, I really love that detail too, that like maybe the kids are really bright and then they lose the color. Maybe it's like, some type of, like children need to be bright and kind of visible in the dark. And then once you kind of get older and can protect yourself from predators, you get darker and darker. So you have this bright little beacon who has kind of attached themselves to you. You haven't met any parents of them, and you do see, but you see, and like, adding on to what Yoshi said about these people, you do tend to see kind of schools of children going around with multiple parents. They live very communally here. So you think that the children are just kind of brought up by everybody. And this one child has kind of gone off on their own and decided to attach themselves to the both of you. And on this this particular day after you've had your first meal, Saffron seems particularly excited, and they're kind of floating and like motioning to you, and it seems they seem very, very excited about something to the both of you, and they're swinging their kelp scarves around, and swishing and making some motions.
I think I just kind of like look at Saffron and then I give Grayson like sort of like a very pointed look of like do you want to like do anything or are you gonna like leave this to me? And just like looking at you.
I think Grayson is like very like knows Echo is looking at them and is just very pointedly like eating, and it's just like not just like very focused on their food, just like nom, nom, nom.
Yeah, and so like I acknowledge it and like I know you're not looking back at me, but I just sort of like do like that like nod at you, even if you don't see it or if you do, and then turn back towards Saffron, and I'm like, all right, what is it, little one? What do you have to say? You've clearly got something on your mind.
All right. Well, Saffron basically like swims forward very excitedly to you, and they put their hand over your face basically because you know that's kind of the greeting. And they motion like they want you to come with them. They're really excited. They look up and basically they kind of point upwards, and you see kind of like a little bit of light shining through, motioning somewhat that it's like today's the day type thing. Like
Grayson will look up at Saffron and look at Echo and just be like, "Are you done eating?"
Yeah, and I just nod and I look at Saffron to make sure that they're done eating as well.
at this point, they've like grabbed some like small herring like fish and they're like to go type thing, you know, like they have one in each hand, and they seem ready.
Grayson is very, very grateful that they wear a bit of a covering on their face because they're definitely smiling. But they're just really, really grateful that like they're a little bit subdued, or like their face is a little hidden. So I mean, I think Echo would know because like the Grayson's got like little laugh lines. Because again, like they're an older person, so like yes, Echo would know that Grayson is smiling, and Grayson's definitely smiling, and they just sort of stand up and be like, "Well, I guess if we have to go, we can head out now. I guess that's fine."
Okay. With that, I think like basically Saffron reads your body language. Like she already they already saw that Echo was like, all right. And like the moment Grayson's like, okay, we're going, they swim off. And then like in the distance, you kind of see this bright flickering light waiting for the both of you. And you both follow after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. You swim for a while, but because you're swimming with a kid too, it's not like when you swam with the other grown-up merfolk, like you take frequent breaks, right? So like Saffron will stop for a fish break. They have two, one in each hand. They've brought enough snacks for the journey. Um, and like, you know, just kind of playing and splashing around in the water. And you travel further and further away from what you've pretty much assumed is kind of the merfolk territory. Um, and it's at the point where you actually get out of the swamp. So you remember last time, basically, the roots of all the trees in the swamp went all the way down, like miles deep down into the water. At one point, you realize as you're swimming that there's no more roots around you anymore, and you're just in open water. And also the water gets slightly lighter. It's not like this murky swamp water anymore. Um, and just as you kind of feel like, oh, there's no anchor around me, I'm just kind of open and everything, you see something coming into view in the distance. And this is actually when Saffron, they begin to swim up towards the water's top. The top of the water where the air is.
The
They
The
swim,
surface.
yes, thank you. They swim to the surface and they motion that you come with them. Sorry. Oh yeah, so they swim to the surface. Um, and when you both break from the surface, what you see and what you were making out kind of in the distance was that in front of you there are hundreds and hundreds of sunken ships in different states of kind of sunkenness. This is not my day for descriptions. And they seem to be coming from all different time periods. Like you see a Titanic-like ship in the distance, a giant one. You see the kind of three-masted sailing ships. And Saffron really happily just like rushes towards one of the ships. What do the both of you do?
Grayson is pretty interested. I think they're looking around, and I think that there are a few ships here that they have never seen before, especially ones with like more modern contemporary engines. They're really only used to like sail ships, boats that make way under sail. So they are very confused by some of the like larger Titanic steamboat battleship wreckages that are here.
What ship does Saffron head towards? What type of ship?
Saffron seems to be heading towards a more modern ship. Like it's something that we would have now that would kind of cruise the canals. So like it's a ship that would have like probably be able to house, yeah, like 10 families or so on kind of like a pleasure, like a riverboat type thing, but a modern riverboat. And Saffron like happily starts swimming towards that.
Cool. Yeah. So I think like I take a moment to survey the scene and then follow Saffron to see what they're so interested because they're excited. Like this is a happy I'm interested. Like there's something cool here we're showing you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, cool. So yeah. Then I'll just kind of like take a moment to like just look to see what is around, but then follow after Saffron because they want to show us something cool, and so I want to go see the cool thing that Saffron wants to show us.
Cool.
Yeah, Grayson definitely follows, and I'm imagining it now like a Viking. You know those like Viking cruises that happen in like the Eastern Europe. They go up and down the Rhine. Anyway, I'll link you to their website. Anyway, that's the kind of ship that I'm imagining is here because it's one of the riverboats. My parents went on this cruise and they just haven't stopped showing me photos since. But yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it, what it looks like. Describe it to me, actually, please.
Yeah, so basically it's sort of what you're describing where it's long and it has a flat bottom which allows them to like go through all of these rivers in the east, like the Eastern European area, and it has like it does have like a pretty large engine, but it also has those suites on all the sides with balconies and stuff. So it's like basically one of the giant cruise ships, but just made in a way that you can go on rivers.
This is, I just took a look at the picture. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, and so we have the same thing here basically, and they're super cool. You all, yeah, so you both, you follow after Saffron. And what you notice is that at one point, you start hearing a sound. And just as that happens, it's a quiet sound, and you realize that standing on the top, like half of the ship, basically, well, the ship isn't sunken quite, but you see it kind of tilting to one side. The front half of the ship basically is kind of like it's obviously crooked in the water. Like it doesn't seem to be going a good way. You see that there's a little boy standing at the highest point, and he's actually calling out for Saffron. And this little boy, he doesn't look like a merfolk. He actually looks like, well, yeah, he has tan skin. He has kind of like a dirty brown hair, like actually dirty, like it's caked in mud. And you also see that he has some mud on his clothes. And besides for that, he's a little bit translucent. And he's kind of calling out for Saffron. And when he sees her, he really excitedly starts waving. And they start waving really excitedly back as well. And
oh no.
What?
Oh no.
Oh no?
That's a ghost. That is a dead A dead child.
Yeah, well, I mean, Saffron swims up. When you say "oh no," are you like "oh no," stopping? Are you like "oh no," paddle, paddle, paddle?
Grayson is like, they would just like shake their head paddling after.
All right. Basically, the boy at this point, once Saffron gets closer, he runs down to like the lower part of the ship. Basically, he like runs all the way down the deck, to the point where he can actually the railing of the ship is just like a foot off the water. And he kind of puts his face down, and he, Saffron rubs her hand over his face, and he kind of like sticks his hand through her face and kind of makes the motion that the merfolk make. And he says, "You brought friends." And he looks up at both of you and says, "Hi."
Yeah, I kind of like wave to him, and then like I gesture towards like the railing because I want to like climb up, and I'm like, yeah, we're here. You, I didn't think there were many people that were, for using their words, had two legs that were here.
He says, "Wait." And so you pull yourself up so you can like
Yeah.
see it. He says, "Oh my gosh, you're a human. Wow." And he's like, "Oh, I'm freaking out right now, Saffron." He like looks down at Saffron, and Saffron kind of like looks up a little bit like, "I don't know what's happening."
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, like, I'm freaking out too. Like, I wasn't expecting to find another human here. Like, how long have you been here?
I think at this point, Grayson has like pulled themselves up next to Echo, but is letting Echo do all the talking because they're still like, what is this monstrous contraption?
He's like, "Whoa, another human, cool mask!" And he like he waves really happy, and he's like, and he focuses back on you, Echo, and I I don't know, like some time. I've been here some time, I think. Hey, he says. Basically, he reaches out to try to touch you, Echo.
Uh, yeah, I'll let him try to touch me, but I'm assuming the hand like goes through me and so on.
He does. It does, and he's like, "Ah, man, wait, are you alive?"
And I'm like, yes, are you not?
Um, well, I'm invisible. At first, I thought maybe I became a superhero, but I don't think that's the case because I don't have any other superpower besides for that I can go through stuff, and that's kind of lame.
Grayson sort of leans over to Echo and is like, "What's a superhero?"
And I think I just kind of like look at Grayson and I'm like, yeah, it would be. And then like instead of like responding to Grayson like the question, I respond to the kid. I'm like, yeah, being a superhero with lots of cool magical powers would be really cool. I'm sorry that the only one you have is to walk through things like, and I'm like, but my buddy here, Grayson, they can move like their clothing and their scarves around with their mind.
Whoa, so like a Magneto type thing, but then with fabric?
Grayson again, like, just sort of nods and then
Yeah.
like turns back to Echo and is like, "What's a Magneto?"
And I do like the subtle shake of my head of like, I don't know either. And then I'm like, but to the kid, I'm like, yes, like that. What you just said.
That's cool. Do you know Saffron can do a lot of cool stuff too? Like she can hold her breath really long underwater. Like less lame Aquaman. I don't know. Then again, my friend Sam said Aquaman wasn't lame, and we got in a really big fight about it. And my mom told me that I shouldn't fight with him about that. And he starts monologuing basically about the finer points of whether or not Sam was wrong about Aquaman.
And Grayson would again whisper to Echo, "These must be the ancient myths of their culture. I say that we don't argue about Aquaman or Magneto, lest we offend their delicate sensibilities and religions."
And I just like nod in total agreement. And I then I look to Saffron, and I'm like, because we don't know the kid's name yet. So like I think because he's human, like I will reach my hand out like to shake his hand, even though I know it's not gonna work. But hey, my name's Echo, and this is Grayson. I didn't catch what your name was.
He says, "Oh, sorry, that was rude." And he puts his hand out, and then he kind of just like shakes it next to your hand, like he's shaking your hand. And he says, "Oh, you can call me Nick."
I'm like, Nick, so like you've been here for a little while then? Because you've gotten to know Saffron at least a little bit, right?
Yeah, Saffron's my best friend. He looks at
Um,
Saffron. Saffron just looks back at him like not understanding what best friend means.
and I'm like, is there anybody else that you remember here? Anybody maybe like you, or are you all alone here?
Um, should we play?
And I kind of just like look because like he totally avoided the question. And then I'm like, sure, what kind of play do you want to do?
Okay. Well, he's like, speaking of superheroes, and at this point, I think he cast everyone as a superhero. And he wants basically to play around the ship, basically. Just he's around 10 years old as well. And Saffron also just likes running around and being silly. So he cast everyone as a superhero. And I would like to ask, if hoping you both have some superhero knowledge. If you don't, I can cast you. But who does he cast you as? I'll let you guys just unmute yourselves because maybe some people are thinking for a bit. Because maybe he revises his Magneto thing once he has a full grasp of your powers, because he is a connoisseur of comics, so he knows a lot.
I think for costume, maybe like one of the Spider-Men, maybe Silk.
Okay. Cool.
Silk, maybe. Or like, this is really funny. Maybe Midnighter or Cloak from Cloak and Dagger.
Oh, that's cool also.
That one might be good because of their ability to blend in with shadows.
Ooh. Okay, so you just you pull out. Do you show him your abilities? Okay, cool. Then
do we? I think while this is happening, honestly, Grayson has actually probably started to wander and is trying to investigate this place and see what's going on here.
Okay.
So they're sort of not abandoning Echo to the small child who wants to play superheroes, but definitely playing along in a different direction physically, looking around for clues and seeing if there's anything interesting here or weird, just sort of a general investigation of the place.
All right. Quickly, Echo, who are you cast as?
I think Echo doesn't know who this is, but after showing how their clothing changes and becomes harder, like armor and stuff like that, I think I get quickly cast as Colossus, and so I'm like, sure, yes, that sounds perfect, Nick.
Okay, awesome. So you all start to play. Echo, do you are you also going to investigate at 1.2, or are you just genuinely playing with the kid?
I think what I'm trying to do is I am investigating, but I think it's more leaning towards trying to figure out what has gone wrong, or why there are all these collection of ships. Is this the repository of the Bermuda Triangle or something like that? Is it there's something that's here that's doing this. Why is Nick here, and why is there nobody else here? Type thing.
Okay. Cool. In that case, I'm gonna first. I'll first go to you, Grayson. You just start playing, and then kind of quickly you're like, "Oh, what's over there?" I'm going to poof poof type thing. You know what I mean? Like you slip into the shadows, I guess, and look around. I would like a check from you. Are you trying to like do this so the kids don't notice? I mean, or are you just like at one point you're like, "Kids, I'm done. Goodbye." You're muted.
I don't know if Grayson is necessarily trying to do it so the kids don't notice that they're doing it, but I think Grayson's definitely like not wasting time. So I think that they're playing with the kids, but they're not necessarily like only playing. You know how like kids can sometimes get like super obsessed with what they are specifically doing in a game and kind of ignore like what other people are doing. I think Grayson has maybe sent them on like one of those kind of chases, more or less, or like one of those threads, and then just sort of poofed into like another part of or like slid into the shadows and like moved to a different part of this weird ship without the children noticing, and like is just poking around.
Okay. Well, I think then you're actually just trying to distract the kids so you can like slide off. So yeah, go ahead. I mean, do you use your knowledge of like kind of religion in which you think this is to kind of like whip Nick into a feather about like a specific scene that he needs posed in a specific way?
Yeah, of course. Like, yeah, there was that one time that the great hero Magnetus like deposed the terrible tyrant Colossus, and there was a huge fight and a magnificent battle, and like, wow, it was just really marvelous to gaze upon, and so much damage was done, but the great hero Magnetus totally came in and fixed everything real fast, and it was amazing. And I think that you need to tell me, like, you need to show me how that happened.
Yeah, I'd like to help also just by like surely there's like an interesting place, like you've been here all this time, the right setting and the scene for where this should happen. You should bring us to where is that place?
All right. Grayson, I'd like check from you, and you can get a +1 from Echo for the assist.
Am I using my my approach or my talent?
Well, your approach is your sword, so I don't think you
Right.
want to slice anybody.
No,
So,
I misspoke. Talent. Would I be using my talent to like slink into the shadows?
yeah, fair. That's
here.
Yeah.
Okay. So what am I using for this?
Well, I think kind of like I would say I would argue like charisma probably, like to kind of manipulate the kid, and then like your talent is the last thing that's kind of like helping you just like poof away during the scene type thing.
Sounds good to me. All right, I will roll 4d6 then.
It's pretty good.
Hell yeah.
Okay. You slip away. And indeed, as basically like Echo, you mention like, oh, well, there must be a perfect place. You see something kind of twinkle behind his eyes, and he kind of like, oh, come on, come on. And he takes you down, and what you notice is that you guys have been on this ship. I mean, because like you've actually been playing with the kids, so you guys have been on the ship for like an hour or two. That the ship has gotten lower at this point. So he takes you down to the front of the ship that was already very close to the water. And he basically, now it's submerged slightly, and he's like, this is the perfect place. And then he basically starts explaining to you the factual inaccuracies of what Grayson just said. And he's like, and I should point out, and he kind of turns around. Grayson's not there anymore. He kind of like shrugs and turns back to you and Saffron and like continues setting up the scene. But Grayson, you have some time to slink away. At this point, you're still at the back of the ship. And you find a door which basically leads inside. Because you don't see, like, because you guys have kind of been running around the deck, you haven't seen anybody on the deck. So I guess like the logical place would be for you to go inside. You make your way inside, and you do hear the sounds of people inside the ship.
Yikes. Yeah, Grayson is being as sneaky as they can be, going deeper into the ship.
Okay. Do you go towards like the large sound of people that you hear?
Yes.
Okay. You head down the hallway. And actually, as you walk down the hallway, a woman passes you, and she has a tray filled with glasses. And she literally passes through you, like she doesn't even notice you.
That's weird. And Grayson sort of acknowledges that's weird, and keeps going.
Okay. You go towards where she just left, and you come into a somewhat large dining room, at least enough to sit all the people who were on this cruise. And you see that there are a bunch of families and various people having dinner. They all are caked, they're all dirty, they're all caked in this mud, the same as Nick. Um, and they're all translucent, the same as him, but they don't seem to notice what they look like. They're all just laughing and talking and having a good time. You know, like you see a mom fussing with a baby who's crying. You see a couple just having a quiet dinner, like looking out of the window. And obviously, like this entire dining room is kind of slanted, and you see like all the furniture is actually pushed all the way to one side. So these people are just kind of like sitting there pretending almost to eat, because they're not sitting on any chairs, they're not eating from anything. You know, the baby that's there, like the mom's just kind of holding it, and then she kind of puts it down as if there's something there, but the baby kind of just floats there.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point Grayson has a pretty solid idea of what has happened here. Um, yeah, and no one seems to notice them at all, right?
No.
Okay. I think Grayson would go right into that dining room, like full of people, and just kind of like walk through the dining room, and like they would walk in a way to like avoid people, but if they run into someone, they wouldn't necessarily like mind. It's one of those things where they're just like sort of trying to avoid people, but if someone like steps and stands and like walks through part of them, Grayson's just gonna like is not gonna like jump out of the way to avoid that.
Um, okay, yeah, I know you do so. And like, yeah, people just continue. Again, they don't seem to notice you. At one point, you know, you notice some couples like get up and leave. You know, some families like with younger kids are just like, okay, we fed you, now go to bed type thing. You know, they pick up their kids and they start heading off down the hallway. You obviously came in at like what must have been like a service entrance or something like that, because you see more waiters and waitresses like coming in and out with like different, what you assume is kind of courses of food, but they're just holding their hands up. They put things down. People seem excited about it. Um, I, sorry.
I just said, oh man.
I'm gonna quickly. I would like you. So you stay there. You observe. And scene changing back to Grayson. You are playing with the kids. And at one point, Nick and Saffron both look up, and Saffron kind of like motions to Nick. And he's like, "Oh, you're right. You're right." And he's like, "Okay, I need to go hide." Um, and Nick just he looks at you for a second, Echo, and he kind of like he looks like he's thinking about something. He's like, "Ah, you're fine," and he runs off.
Like, where does he run off to?
He just basically he goes up the ship, because you guys are kind of playing in the water, so Saffron can play with you. So he runs upwards, and you see that there's still kind of like some barrels and stuff thatched to the ship. He just like jumps behind them, and he just crouches there really quietly.
And what is he trying to hide from?
After like a minute or so passes, you're kind of looking around and you see two people. Actually, they're walking down they're walking down one of the sides of the ship, like like one of the walkways. They're walking down one of the side walkways towards you guys, and they're calling out. You hear them calling out for Nick.
Yeah, so I'll stand up and probably do like the like straighten your shirt type thing, and then like walk towards them and like wave and call out to them as they approach.
All right, you do so, and they don't seem to notice you.
Uh, and I just kind of like I try again, and I'm assuming they don't notice me even after like I try again. So I just kind of like when they don't notice me and continue to not notice me, I just sort of like pause and look at them, and then sort of like if they're not noticing me, I just like stare at like where Nick is, and then like walk to like where he is. I'm like, how come like you are special, Nick? Like you can see me. How come they can't?
He like looks at you, and he's like,
They can't see or hear me. What does it matter?
motions.
But they can see and hear you. Like you really are special. And I'm like, and then I think like I sit like because it's these barrels, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think I'll just like sit on the barrels or things like with my back against the ship or sort of like watching the pair of people that are like going around and sort of like just like narrating what they're doing. Like, oh, now they're walking down towards the water, towards the edge, and like just going through all those things like because Nick is apparently trying to hide and keep away. So like I'm sort of playing along with it, like what he's doing, but like since they can't see or hear me, like just like telling him like what's up.
Yeah, he like as you narrate this, like he listens for a bit and he seems a little bit like saddened by it. He's like, at one point like he's hiding. And at first he's like kind of really active hiding, and at one point he just kind of sits there and he hangs his head a bit and he looks down. Um and when they walk off, he kind of stands up and he's like, "Okay, we can play again."
Mike, you seem a little bit down. Like why don't you want to be found by them?
Oh, those are my parents.
So why don't you want to be found by your parents?
Then I have to stop playing.
What you think that if they found you, you wouldn't be able to play anymore?
He nods and he's like, "Then I have to go downstairs." And it's not time to go downstairs yet.
When is it time to go downstairs?
He looks and he points at the sun, and then he points a little bit like adjacent to the sun.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. And so like you'll just keep playing until it gets to that time, and then you'll go downstairs when the sun when the sun gets over there.
Yeah.
Is this what you do every day? Nope.
He shakes his head.
What do you do most days when Saffron's not here?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
No.
No. Do you know how long you've been here?
No.
It's been a while though, hasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Have you and Saffron explored any of the other ships?
Mm, he looks at Saffron. He's like, "Have you explored any of the other ships?" And he just kind of like points. They have their own way of communicating. Like you
Yeah.
notice that they've kind of worked it out. And she nods. Or sorry, they nod.
Yeah. And I kind of like look at Nick. I'm like, but you haven't gone anywhere. You're on this ship. Can you swim?
Um, yeah, like I could swim when I was alive.
Have you tried?
Yeah,
Does it work?
no.
What happens?
I just end up back here.
Oh. there must be lots of places that you want to go.
Yeah,
Where do you want to go most?
off this ship, back
Hmm,
home,
back home. Where was home for you?
Chicago.
Hmm.
Do you know where Chicago is?
And I nod. I'm like, yeah, I know where Chicago is, but I haven't been there.
That's okay. Maybe if I can escape one day, then we can go together.
That sounds like a lovely plan. And I'm like,
Maybe
what's?
we can bring Saffron too.
And I
She's
kind of
a
like
little
look.
mermaid.
I look at Saffron and I look back at Nick. I'm like, that's a wonderful idea, Nick. We'll see how things go, and maybe that will happen. But
Saffron
first,
basically grits their teeth, and they're like, "Not Little Mermaid." She grits at him. She speaks a couple of words basically, and one of them she's definitely learned is that she's not Little Mermaid.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, Nick, maybe, but I think in order to figure out how to get you back, we might have to figure out why you how you got here. Like if you ever like go on a walk or anything like that and you remember like, oh, this is where the convenience store was and that was where the bridge is, you remember all those little details of how you got to where you were. Usually I use those to get me back to where I was. Do you remember any of those things?
Like it was summer vacation, and my parents took me on a cruise, and it was meant to be awesome, and it ended up sucking.
Hmm. What made it suck so much?
I ended up here.
Was it absolutely wonderful until then?
That was okay. I mean, what are you doing on a boat anyway? Like, he's like, there's no TV. Or at least we didn't get one of the rooms with the TV because dad's cheap, mom's cheap. They're probably both cheap. And like, and he's like, and I had a book that I had to read, but I didn't want to read Harry Potter, even though everyone liked Harry Potter because I like comic books, and comic books are way cooler than Harry Potter. And I heard that they were probably going to come out with a comic book of Harry Potter because they come out of a comic book with everything. And my mom thought that would. He just keeps going.
I just sort of like nod along, and eventually I interrupt him like, "Okay, that sounds wonderful. Um, I'm gonna go. Like, why don't you and Saffron play a little bit more? But you were saying that there were a bunch of people like inside, like there was you had to go inside where your parents went, and since they don't see me, I figure I can maybe go in there and it won't be a big problem."
Okay, well, you're an adult and I can't really tell you what to do, but you should probably be back before the sun goes there. And he points again.
What happens when the sun goes there?
Just be back.
And I kind of like look at him like, okay, I trust you, Nick. Like you seem like a smart kid and you've been here and you know more about this place than I do, so I should take your advice.
He nods.
And I think with that, I sort of like walk towards to like wherever his parents went and follow like that direction.
Cool. Back to Grayson. Are you just staying in the dining room or are you going to explore more?
They're definitely exploring. I think that they would walk and they would actually follow where the main crowd of people are going.
Okay. Well, basically, like the boat isn't like the ship isn't like giant in terms of like most of it is just like these quarters where people can stay on. Obviously, this was a boat that like docked pretty often. That was kind of like the excitement of the cruise. But you follow the main crowd of people, and there is kind of like a small activity entertainment area, and that's where most of the people are going. Like if the families aren't going to if the families just aren't going back to their rooms, you know what I mean? Like most people are going to the entertainment area.
Yeah, that's definitely where Grayson is going. They're just sort of exploring. I think that at this point they are less wary and more curious about what's going on. So this is definitely just them sort of like looking around, and they're sort of getting a little bolder with just like moving through people without really like walking around them. So they're really just like exploring and watching, because for them it's like a time machine. Like they've never seen anything like this, never seen people dress this way or act this way or do whatever. And they're all very tall, weirdly tall. So it's just like giant people. And they're just very excited. They're just like, this is really interesting. Huh. Huh.
Cool. Yeah. No, so you see them, like you see at one point, like guy comes out, starts doing somewhat okay stand up, like like you think like this may be like, if you were a modern person, you may think like this has been his 15th cruise and he's just phoning it in at this point. Like he could be funnier, but he knows he doesn't have to be, type thing. So he's doing some stand up, and you see families, like people are just enjoying themselves. Some of them are listening to the stand up. Obviously, some of them are going to get drinks. And yeah, they're just enjoying their time with one another. And I think at this point, like you stand and you people watch. You also notice a couple people saying, like, remarking on what terrible weather it is outside. Though you yourself, like when you look outside, it's like it's fine outside. But people remark about how rainy and terrible it is, and that they're happy that there's an inside space on the ship. And I think at this point, like at one point, like Echo walks in, right? Like after you've been people watching for a bit.
Yeah, I think that Grayson turns to them and it's just like, this place is bizarre.
And I'm like, yeah, all of the people here can't see or hear us, and we can't interact with them with the exception of Nick.
There's something wrong here. Something is keeping these people in this weird loop. I get the feeling that they've been through this a few years, for however long they've been here, they've just been trapped.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's something here that's holding them in place? Do you think could it be Nick?
Maybe. All I know is when I came in here, Nick said to be back outside and meet him outside in a little bit, like in a couple of hours or whatever that time frame is. And he didn't tell me why, but like, if you think they're going through a loop, it could very easily be like when things reset, or maybe this ship disappears, or I don't know what's going on, but he didn't want to tell me, and it seemed kind of dire.
He also told us there was no one else here.
Which is clearly sort of a lie. I mean, there are people, but they're not people like we can interact with.
But why not be clear about that in the first place? It's either something happens in here that he doesn't want us to see, or something happens that he's afraid of.
Yeah, he was afraid of coming inside when I was coming in. He wanted to stay outside and play, and it felt like when he comes, like he didn't want to go inside, and that would end the thing that's going on, like this playtime.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe if he comes back in and he joins the rest of the people here, then they move on.
I'm like, maybe, but what if he already does that every day at the same time, and then they come back? He didn't seem to have any idea of really how long, only that he's been here a while.
And Grayson would nod and just be like, well, if we're going to believe him, which means no one is really here. If he's telling the truth, no one is here. Then there's something keeping whatever this is here.
Well, I mean, he was afraid of being found by his parents. So at least his parents can see and interact with him, and he can see and interact with them, but we can't. He's somewhere in between them and us.
Mhm. And Grayson would sort of like look around again and like tug on some of their ribbons, and he'd be like, "Yeah, well, I think that that means it makes sense to me that he would be the anchor keeping this ship here. But do you want to keep exploring here, or do you want to go back to the surface and talk to Nick again?"
I don't know. Like, I mean, that makes sense. We have an hour or two um, till the end time that he was saying to come back out was. Is there anything else you've been around in here? It's just more of the same here.
Yeah, there was a room where they were eating, but all of the furniture was not where the people were. So this must be, I suspected that the furniture is where, like the tables and the chairs, all of that was on one side of the ship, and the people were still eating as if the places had been set before them. So I imagine that this is, if we wait and see what happens, I imagine that all of the people will be in the same place the chairs were. Um, I believe that they are replaying the last hours until this place sank.
Well, I wonder then if we looked for some sort of damage or way that it sunk, whether that would even be here if it hasn't yet manifested. But you said the furniture was all slid across the room, so maybe it is.
I think, isn't just out of character, isn't this ship already like sunk? Isn't it already like broken?
Yeah, what you both notice is that like the ship has, since you've been here, slowly been sinking,
Mm-hmm.
getting lower and lower. So yeah, like all the furniture. I mean, like if you assume that at one point it sinks, like all the furniture is all kind of like flushed to one side of the ship.
Okay. Yeah, and then I think Grayson would turn to Echo and just shrug and be like, "I'm sure we'll find damage somewhere. Do you want to try and find it? Maybe if we fix the damage, we can fix whatever's happening here."
Maybe, but I think you might be right that the damage is not really why the ship is still here. It's not why Nick is here.
Well, maybe there's still a clue near the damage site if you want to go find, if we want to descend and find it.
Yeah, and luckily we can go underwater.
Bully for us.
Yeah, I think that might be what we're gonna do is um, head down towards like the bottom and see if we can find like where the ship like there's a crack in the hull or something like that or whatever it is.
Cool. Do you want to make me an awareness check then? I think.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And I think Grayson is here helping me.
Yeah, cool. So you get a +1.
Yeah, so
I am
it
helping.
gets me 6, which gets me 5 successes.
Darn. Also 4 6s. Darn.
4
That's good.
6s too, so
Yeah.
that's good.
You search you search the entire ship, which takes you some time, right? Because you're swimming, you're looking through dark water, et cetera, et cetera. So it takes you about an hour or so to search for everything, and you are 100% sure there's no damage to this ship.
Interesting.
Like, and you've been thorough, right? Like you two have searched through everything.
And I think like this is maybe like as we're walking towards on the surface again, like back towards like where Nick is after we've searched, I'm like, you didn't find anything. I didn't find anything. I guess we talked to Nick.
And Grayson's very confused, just because of the way that the ship is like everything's arranged. They would expect something to be like some damage, but yeah, Grayson would just sort of nod, and again, Echo knows them well enough that like they can see that they're frowning, like a little not pleased about the way this is turning out. And they're just like, yeah, maybe if we can try and communicate with Saffron again, maybe they have seen what happens after dark.
You both head towards where Nick and Saffron are playing. And as you do, you basically you get to the surface of the water and then the outside of the ship. And you head towards the two children. And you start to hear a sound coming over the water. It's a slow song, a voice kind of echoing through all the ships. And you hear it kind of centering itself almost on the ship that you're on. And as you get to Saffron and Nick, you look and you see that Saffron at this point is in the water a little bit away from the ship, and they're kind of waving and like they motion over their face. And Nick is about to wave. He like puts his hand up, and then it kind of like falls to his side, and with like kind of no emotion on his face, he turns and he starts walking down one of the pathways, kind of like on the opposite pathway. Like you guys are coming up one and he walks down the other on the other side of the ship.
I'm gonna call out to Nick and like, hey Nick, and like just try to get his attention. I'm assuming he ignores me, like, okay. And then like when he ignores me, like I kind of like look at Grayson and I look back down to Saffron and I'm like, is this what happens all the time?
She nods. Sorry, they nod. Excuse me, sorry. I keep they nod, and they kind of shrug. And then they motion for you to come with them, or get in the water with them.
I think Grayson gets in the water. I think that they are not going to risk it. They get in the water.
All right. You both get in the water with Saffron, and they kind of sorry. Echo?
Say, before we I get in the water definitely, but I think maybe I take a piece of the kelp that Saffron, I try to motion and get a piece of the kelp to put on the ship because I want to see what happens as the that's going on with the piece of kelp. Does it stay? Does it just suddenly plop into the water? Because it seems like things are fading, right?
Well, you things aren't the ship isn't fading. You tie it to the ship. Saffron just gives it to you, no problem. You tie it to the ship, and the ship does start to sink. As you both kind of exit and you are treading water next to Saffron. And as the boat, the voice across the water gets louder and louder, the ship starts to sink more violently. And at one point you start hearing screams aboard the ship when the ship's about halfway submerged. And you hear pounding coming from inside the ship.
Well, knowing that we've just been around everything, is there we know where those doors were? I'm gonna get back on the ship and go try to open the doors.
Okay. You Saffron stays in the water. They actually when you jump on Echo, I think at this point Saffron kind of huddles to you, they don't want to watch. And Echo, you jump on and you just go to the closest door and you try to grab it open. Can I have a check for that?
Sure. I guess it's probably strength.
Yeah, I'm just ripping a door off its hinges.
Cool.
Or like, well, let's see how well you roll first.
That's the goal. I don't think I got anything else that will help. So let's do that. I got 2.
All right. So you it takes some effort, but that's, I mean, I would even argue though, like these aren't like heavy metal doors, right? Like they're probably like, because it's like a quaint river cruise boat. So it's like probably like a heavy wooden door. So you kick it open. Um and it kind of it goes through the people who are like banging on the door. And you see a man and woman there and they're panicked and there's people behind them and they're still slamming on what they think is the door, even though it's an empty space. And the boat's sinking, and they're screaming for help.
Yeah. That other like otherworldly voice that we heard, that's something that's different from the people on the ship, right? Or is that
It's coming across the water, and it's loud. At this point, it's very loud.
but it's not centered in this ship, like
No.
okay. Um yeah, like I think I I spend a couple of moments like vaguely trying to like gesture and yell at the people like the door's open, even though I know they're not going to do it. And I probably spend some like moments trying to like call for Nick as the only person who heard me. But like as things become apparent that that's not going to affect anything, um, I think I'm gonna like go to the edge and like maybe go up higher because if the ship is listing down, there's probably like a high point. So I think I'm gonna go to like where that high point is and try to like see if I can spot um, maybe the sound of this otherworldly voice.
Okay. Um, so actually, I would like to propose something like I did for Linda last session, Yoshi. And this is the fact that you have been, Echo, you have been in a disaster before. I would maybe even say that your home was prone to disasters, so maybe it wasn't your first. And you mentioned to me that you were kind of a loner. But I think there is one point in your life where you had someone, whether that was a friend or a family member that you reconnected with. Um, who was that actually? You're gonna suffer a break at this point, as you are not able to help these people get out of that door.
Yeah. Somebody. What was the prompt again? It was somebody that I was close with.
Yeah, someone who you were a loner for a long time, right? You made a friend named Quinn. Maybe it's a mutual friend. Maybe it is Quinn. But you're in a situation where you're living with this person at this point, whether that's a friend, a lover, a family member, something like that.
Yeah, so I don't think it was actually, you know what? Let's keep the narrative tight. Let's make it Quinn, the person who I rescued or that we shared like that other moment with before. And so this is probably sometime afterwards. So it's me and her. We're probably living together because we couldn't find her family after that disaster. Um, and yeah, so I think we're probably living together trying to make like just be each other's newfound family.
Okay. So I imagine basically like it's night, like you guys are both chilling on the couch, right? Like probably watching some TV after your respective long days at work. Um, and did we have pronouns for Quinn actually? Is it
I think it was she, her.
cool? Quinn, like she just makes some popcorn, like she flops down on the couch, and you feel the couch kind of like shake. Um, and she like looks at you, and then the entire room starts to shake. What do you do?
I think like we both like we look at each other, and I think it's one of those things like where we've like rehearsed not exactly the same thing, because like as you said, the city is goes through a lot of like disaster prone like type thing. And I think it's where we're like, I imagine we're in like an apartment building and we're on like the third floor or something like that. So like we're not on the ground floor, and like we look at each other, and I think it's both like running to the stairs. Like we both know like if the building is shaking, like the thing that you want to do is you want to get out of the building in case like things happen. So like we're both like just like go towards the door, towards the stairs, and start like running downwards trying to get out, as like probably there's a bunch of other people in this building who are probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, you're both running. Like yeah, you both like you kind of just there's this unspoken moment between the both of you, and I think it's like the same unspoken moment that you both had when you first kind of locked eyes in that disaster moment that we talked about the last session. Um, and you beeline it. And just as Quinn gets to the stairs, she's grabbed on some railing, she's behind you, and you hear her, and it's through the sound of like things ripping. This is a larger, you heard there was, and now you remember kind of there was a forecast of a quake, but they didn't think that it was going to be anything big. Um, so, and so through the ripping, you hear like the ripping of the building. You hear her just like yell out, Mrs. Hahn, and she turns around, um, and the nearest door to her left, like she starts like trying to hit it in because you see people like running past you, and you remember like you have an elderly neighbor who lives alone.
So I think what happens then is like I go up to her, and I kind of like help, just like I kicked the door in here. It's like that same thing is like because it's not happening fast. It's that same sort of like you just step up and kick at the handle, like, and like I think maybe the door comes apart, or like it opens up. Um, and I think I turned to Quinn and I'm like, I'm gonna go check the bedroom, like look around, because it's like I'm imagining this sort of like apartment complex where all of the apartments are identical no matter which one you are, or there's only a small subset. So like we know where things are. I'm like, I'm going to the bedroom, like check the kitchen, or like check the whatever the other rooms are.
Yeah. Yeah, she runs to the kitchen basically, and like there's like the kitchen and the bathroom. It's not a huge, they're not huge apartments,
Yeah.
Um, you managed to find Miss Han. She was in bed already. So she's actually just getting out, and like she's clearly shipping. Like she looks at you, and she kind of reaches out, you know what I mean, like, for help, but she doesn't know how to react to this. Like she was obviously just rudely awoken.
Yeah. And like I repeat to her, I'm like, it's okay. Like we're here. Like I'm here to help you. Like here, take my arm, and like try to help her as quickly as possible, um, to get up and to move. And I call out to Quinn, and it's like, Quinn, I found her. Here, like we're going towards, but like we got to get out of here quickly.
All right. So Quinn like comes, and she takes the other side of Mrs. Han, and like you both kind of like help her out. And you start down the stairs. And at this point, there's other neighbors behind you also helping. Like I assume like, it's an apartment building where like you've seen each other, you said hello. You know what I mean? Like you may not even know each other well, but you're like, hey, that's the guy I always talk to for 30 seconds while we're getting our mail type thing. And obviously when they see you're with an elderly lady, they try to assist you. But by the time you get to like the first floor and you're about to make it to the ground floor, it's clear this building is coming down. Like pieces of the building are falling around you. And you get out. You get out, Echo. And there's two people following behind you. There's Mrs. Hahn and there's Quinn. One of them doesn't make it out of the building. Who is it? What's the last thing you remember as this memory starts to fade?
I think I think what it is I think it's not so much an active choice of like who gets out. It's the as things are coming down, um, it's the immediacy of like just who I'm actually touching and helping pull out. I think as things are crumbling, um, with my free hand, I'm like knocking stuff away and pushing open a door and making sure that like we can get by. And I'm pulling on Mrs. Hahn, who's right next to me. And it's the assumption that Quinn's on the other side, helping. And when I finally turn around and I'm holding on to Mrs. Hahn and like pulling her out as the building collapses, it's like looking back and realizing that Quinn isn't on the other side of Mrs. Hahn.
All right. I think that's a good place to end the break. Um, all right. I also think that this may be a good time for us to take a break before we continue on with the scene. You see Echo climb onto the ship very quickly, break down the door, notice the people who are screaming, and they turn. Echo turns. They turn, and once they realize they can't help the people, they turn to go to like the top of the ship, the very like last tippy top that hasn't sunken yet. And as they're very pointedly walking towards that, you see them just stop in their tracks. What do you do?
So I would recognize this as a break, correct?
Yeah, you and your crew, you've all seen each other go through at least one break, so you're used to it. Yeah. Well, if you ever get used to your party members going catatonic.
I think that Grayson would just kind of mumble, "Ah, shit," and climb back aboard the sinking ship like any normal human would do, and try to sort of rescue their friend and drag them back into the water.
All right. You climb up basically, and you grab Grayson, and as you turn to leave, something catches your eye because you realize you're kind of walking up, where there's like different cabins, and you actually see Nick inside his cabin. He's gotten up at this point, and he is at the window, and he's slamming his fist on the window, screaming. And you see his two parents kind of in the back, and they're trying to get their door open.
Yikes. I think that Grayson, there's a draft here. I think that Grayson would still grab Echo and try and pull them over. I think that they would focus on Echo.
Fair. You grab your crew member and you just get off the boat. And at this point, Saffron actually helps you. They're young, but they're 10 and they're a strong swimmer, right? So like and once you guys get in the water, they they put themselves underneath Echo and help you kind of tread water as keeping Echo up while you watch the ship sink. And as it does, and as it falls deeper and deeper into the water, you hear kind of the cacophony of screams fade. But what's so pressing to you and so like normally at one point the sound should stop, right? Because the song stops, the song fades the moment the ship is underwater, but you still just very faintly hear the cries of people underwater. And it's at this point that you wake up as well.
Yeah, I mean, Grayson is just doing their best to sort of keep Echo above water, even though like logically they know that both of them can breathe water, but they still just want Echo around. But I think that as soon as Echo like comes to, Grayson's still like holding on to them, and they wouldn't immediately let go, but they would just be like, "Let's go under and see if we can see the boat."
Yeah, I'll nod, but like before I go down, I want to like look at from the surface up here. Um, are all of the other boats all like sunk and disappeared, or is this like the only one? Like, how has the landscape changed?
This seems to be the only one.
Okay, but like, and so like everything else seems like just as it was when we showed up.
As it was before, besides for the sun's in a different place in the sky.
Sure, sure. Okay, yeah. So like seeing that, like I just kind of like nod at Grayson, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. Seeing if that ship is still sinking or it hit the bottom or whatever's going on. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And yeah, I think I just take a moment and then start swimming down with Grayson and Saffron.
Yeah, Grayson follows.
Saffron, when you both go down to find, like Saffron just shakes and like motions that they're gonna stay where they are. Um, like they kind of do the thing that you do to parents, like, no, I swear I'll stay here, but I'm not going with you type thing. Like
Saffron's good out here.
Yeah, that's fine.
You both swim down. You see that the ship hasn't gone all the way to the bottom. It's just kind of floating there underneath the water. About like I would say like 2 floors beneath water or so. Um, and you swim down to the ship, and you start taking a look around. And you see that all the people are still in their rooms. Their rooms are flooded with water. And the people are down there screaming and screaming and drowning, but they don't seem to die.
Yeah, Grayson's just watching all this. I don't think that they feel the need to try to save these people because it seems pretty apparent that they always come back. And I think that Grayson is more interested in observing what happens more so than interfering. But they would definitely be like swimming down on the level with the boat and then just sort of following it as it goes.
So I think Echo is sort of like not curious, but like investigating a little bit. Like the boat is staying at the same level; it's not sinking any further. Like hit a point and that stopped, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm gonna like swim down, especially to the lowest point, and see if like there's damage there or something like now that maybe appeared that wasn't there before. Um, and then maybe like as I'm swimming down around it, seeing if I can find Nick, because you had stated that he was at the top of the boat, like near where I was.
Yeah, one of the cabins at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'll probably also try to see if like I can find Nick and see what happens because he's special in this thing, and so like see if he does something different that nobody else does, like if he swims out or finds an exit or something like that.
All right. So I would say you probably, because you're kind of above, like you first go see Nick and then you go down to inspect the bottom. You get to Nick's cabin. He's still at the window. You see that he's there and he's in an immense amount of pain. You just see it written over his body and his face. But unlike his parents, who you see are like behind him screaming, when he sees you, there seems to be a sense of awareness in him. though he isn't able to move from his position. And he's there just kind of screaming. Like he's there kind of just like in pain, drowning.
Well, screw going to the bottom. Despite the fact I already tried to rescue people before, I'm probably going to try to rescue him here. So, like, whether that's kicking in the window or something like that that's nearby. And I know I can't pull on him, but I'm going to try to do something.
Okay. So I guess you're smashing, right? Smashy,
Yeah.
smashing.
Smashing. And I think it's going to be sort of like the, because there's railings all over ships. I think it's like grabbing with one hand on the railing and then like with my elbow, just like trying to like smash into the window type thing. And I think this might be like using my like clothing that sort of turns into armor a little bit. So like it sort of like hardens up and maybe gets to like a point on my elbow to help break open that window.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Also, so you're not like shoving your arm through glass type thing and like
Exactly.
fair.
I think that really quickly, I think that Grayson, my character's name is Grayson. I totally remember that all the time. Grayson would swim over and once and like is following sort of at a distance, but once Echo starts, attacking something, Grayson will be there to help. So
cool. All right, so you're actually assisting. So in that case, Echo, you get a +1.
Awesome, thank you. It did not help. So before, when I rolled 5 dice and got 4 sixes and 5 successes. Now I roll 5 dice and got 0 successes, 2 ones and 3 threes.
Okay. Do you want to take the failure, or are you going to spend some points of ferocity?
I could spend all 3 points of ferocity.
I could also try.
That's true. You could also try. Yeah, maybe I'll take the failure.
Okay. You can mark experience. What happens at this point is as you start kicking in the window, specifically in front of Nick, I mean, you had used, just because swimming is tiring, so you've been using the ship to kind of pull yourself down because you can breathe, right? Nothing really seemed to kind of become aware of you. But the moment you start trying to free Nick, and you're hitting your elbow and you hear kind of that like dumph, dumph sound, you hear a screech under the water. And yeah, you hear a screech. I'm first going to see what Grayson's going to do. Grayson, you said you wanted to also smashy smashy. You hear the screech too, by the way. It's not just Echo hearing it in their head.
Yeah, I think that Grayson, after seeing that, like, just sort of bashing this window wasn't going to do it, they're going to get in close, as close as they can, and they're going to try and shove it open, sort of with like the really, really strong like triangle here. That's way you tip cows, just in case anyone was wondering. Triangle and just pop. Anyway, the point is, it's very powerful. The triangle is key. So they would do the triangle, but they would also like bring out their scarves and ribbons and try like wedge them in and use like the sharp and just pry it open.
Okay, so you're more trying to shimmy the door open with some strength.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like it's basically like still using strength, but a sort of a slightly different skewed approach to it.
All right, cool. You get a +1 from your approach as well. Sounds good.
I'm not sure how I would help other than maybe like if you're like pushing in on it, like maybe like going behind you and like trying to like shove and help push you that way. I'm not sure. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean, if you're also pushing on the window, I mean, like maybe it's like a joint effort type thing. Like,
I push and Echo pulls, she pulls, they pull.
oh right, yeah, yeah, like they're shimmying and you're pushing. Okay, fair, sure. Plus one die. You've sold it to me.
Cool. I'm gonna be rolling 6d6, so fingers crossed here.
The bigger the dice pull, the harder they fall.
Truly, we've been there. All right, here we go. Ooh, heck yeah.
All right, you shimmy the window open. And you feel kind of like that. Well, it's not even a suck actually, because the room is fully submerged and filled with water at this point. So you just managed to get it open, and you feel the resistance as you push it through with the water. And yeah, Nick's just floating there. He doesn't make a move to escape. He just kind of looks very helpless.
As if Grayson doesn't have a track record for like having a soft spot. Yeah, Grayson is grabbing that child and going to the surface.
You grab at him, and your hand goes through.
What? Fudge. Okay. Is there? So I remember when I first spoke about Grayson's like shadow ability, where it was first like where they can. I remember the first instance where I like really went into it was when we were talking about the surface of the first oasis that was just jet black, and the idea that these sort of in between liminal spaces are like the shadows in which they can like really use their ability. Every other time it's not really necessarily as effective, and it really is just them trying to blend in. But I think that I would like to use that talent, that sort of shadow ability to be able to like enter into the liminal space here and try and see if that would work to get a hold of Nick.
Okay, so what we're saying is basically that like the ghosts kind of exist in that in-between space. And I remember Yoshi mentioning something about that as well, that Nick's kind of this in-between type creature. Fair. I think that this is more difficult though, right? Like, so I'm gonna say you need 3 successes rather than 2.
Okay.
What type of check are you thinking of making for this? So you're just trying to grab the kid, right?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, I would go for either dexterity or awareness.
Awareness, you're just trying to sense that space, because actually Nick's not really resisting. So you're trying to go for the just like, I see into this space, I feel this space with my talent. Okay, right. Cool. Like I'm down for awareness. That makes sense to me.
Okay. Awareness, so I have 2 for mind, 1 for awareness, and because I'm using my talent, do I get to get a bonus for that as well?
Talent gives you a +1.
Okay, so that's 4. All right.
Can you get a 5th for me helping by trying to like talk to Nick and remind him like we were playing together, like remind him who we were, that we're here to help, and to grab on to Grayson, and like try to reach out and like come with us type thing?
Yep, sounds good. Like you're connecting with him in that way as well, so like kind of meet us halfway type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So that gives me 5d6. So here we go. Aha.
Okay. The screeching is getting closer, by the way. You step into. Does it look like anything, Grayson, or is it just you doing this basically?
I want to say that it sort of it's yes, there is a physical, you can physically see the difference, and I think that what I want it to look like is kind of you know what happens when Frodo puts on the ring in Lord of the Rings and he goes invisible, and it like has sort of that smoky texture effect where things are just like, those lines are just not, they're just not anymore. it's that look where they go smoky and incorporeal, and you can definitely see how like if they would go into this space, and that's sort of how I'm thinking of it. I think is like the way that Frodo can put on the ring and like be invisible, and they would be able to move through shadows, as well as just like, oh, they put on the ring and they go smoky, and they can also like connect with this liminal world that's different.
Okay, cool. I think that sounds awesome. Okay, so you grab Nick.
Nice.
Pull him towards you. And do you swim to the surface?
As quickly as I can.
Okay.
And hopefully Echo and Saffron will help.
All right. You swim to the surface. Echo, you follow after. The moment that Saffron sees the both of you, like she swims over, Nick takes like a giant gasp of air. And he looks at the both of you. And you notice that his body's kind of floppy. Like he's obviously aware. He's obviously awake. I'm not going to say alive because we've established that he's a ghost, so that's very hard to say. But he's aware of you, right? Like he's conscious. But he doesn't seem to be able to move, really. And luckily his eyes were kind of open. It almost seems like he's paralyzed, but he does kind of like take in, like the moment he's out of that water, that sense of dread and that fear that you saw him kind of subsides. And again, I think you feel something familiar, Grayson. You feel something familiar that you remember from the first moment you came into the Drowned Lands. And this, you feel it too, Echo. Something grabbing onto your ankles. And as it grabs onto your ankles, you both feel sharp pains in your neck. And you hear a song. And the song is calling you, and it wants you to come down into the water with it. It's begging you, please, please, please come down into the water. It calls to you in your language. You speak actually the language of the dead, so you're all able to communicate with one another. It's just kind of this power that the Tenebris grants you. But this song is in your home language, and it calls you down into the water. And all of a sudden, that grab on your leg just feels like a gentle caress and an invitation.
I want to, I think, go with it, but go with it in the sense that it's the like, okay, I'm going to go into the water and punch this thing in the face because I don't want to be pulled down. So it's sort of the like, you're calling me to the water, you're calling me over there, but I'm not like going to fight it and like kick and try to stay up. I'm gonna like go down and try to stop the thing that's pulling me.
Do you want to resist this song though?
Oh yeah, sure. I would totally resist the song.
Because it is pretty siren-y, we'll say.
Funny that. Yeah. I will totally try to resist the song. Maybe trying to like focus on Nick and realize that there's something else here that I need to be doing and that I can't go yet.
Like you're not going to let this one out of your sight type thing?
Yeah.
Fair. Cool. I guess are you then for awareness? Is that kind of how you're going to go with it type thing? Or are you, okay.
Yeah. Awareness seems good. So let's clear some dice pools. Type that in and I get 3 successes.
Cool. So you resist the song, but you let yourself sink down almost, but like you focus on Nick basically.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Grayson? Because you're actually the one holding, because you've got, like, you are able to interact with Nick, right? So you're the one holding him. And you feel this song calling to you as well.
Yeah, that's a big ol' hell no from Grayson. Grayson is going to. Is there a shoreline here, or is it all just like sunken ships?
Yeah, there's not a shoreline, but I mean, there's a ship within swimming distance, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not right next to you because the ship right next to you was underwater, but like
Yeah,
you could get to it like in
yeah,
less than a minute, probably.
yeah. I think that is where Grayson is heading. They're resisting the song and heading in that direction with Nick.
Okay. Right. How are you gonna resist the song?
I think that it's. I think Grayson is just focusing on like the physical task at hand, like physically swimming and physically holding Nick, and that is what is keeping Grayson grounded.
Okay, so you just go into that almost like animalistic state of just like, okay, get through this type thing.
Yeah, definitely a mind over matter kind of thing where they are just very, very focused on the physical effort that it is taking.
All right. What were you thinking of rolling?
That's a good question. Strength. I could make an argument for strength or stamina. Either one of those.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think probably stamina makes more sense to me just in terms of like withstanding, right? Like,
Mhm.
and getting over there.
Sure.
Cool.
All right, let's do this. 3d6s.
But before I was gonna say before you roll, can I help by like maybe like trying to like if there's actual tentacles or things of like kicking at the other tentacle that's attached to Grayson or something like that? That's the
Well,
song.
I think this is kind of happening in tandem.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say not right now, but like you can act late, like in a second if things go terribly wrong for Grayson.
I got 2 successes.
They don't. All right, you swim to the ship, the next ship.
Great.
Are you dumping Nick there? Are you climbing up on it? Are you
Yeah, Grayson is climbing up with Nick.
okay?
They are getting all out as far out of the water as they can.
All right. In that case, I am gonna change back to Echo. Echo, you're pulled underwater. Um, when you're pulled underwater, you spy who's the most beautiful person. Like all of a sudden, you are reminded of the most beautiful person you ever saw when you were living. Who was this person? Describe them to me. Was it someone famous? Was it someone you knew, or maybe idealized for a certain reason?
No, we're gonna circle back and keep the narrative tight. I think it reminds. I see Quinn is who I see, the person I left
Um,
behind, and Quinn. She has short hair that is like this length type thing. Um, it's all like because it's underwater, it's all like all over the place, and she is probably like lithe and somebody who looks like that maybe they've had some hard times but has like a bunch of resilience and like a little bit of like fire in her eyes, like she had to deal with some shit, and it those memories are things that like you can see carry through on her face and her determination.
all right. Well, you see Quinn floating there. Actually, understand the song basically. Like you've resisted it, right? So it's not like an irresistible song. But you know what she's saying like makes a lot of sense. And you know she tells you like you couldn't have helped it. I wanted I wanted to help Mrs. Han. I'm happy with where I am. I'm at peace. But damn, I haven't seen you in a while. Come give me a hug.
I think I go and give her a hug, like despite the fact that like she's the siren calling, like I go and I'm like, I'm sorry, like I didn't want to leave you, and I'm here now, but like there's so much more that we can do to help. Why don't and I like don't finish the sentence as like I just like hug her and embrace her.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I think after a moment of that, it's probably going to be like there's still more we can do.
You're hugging her, and you say that to her that there's still more that we can do. Um, and she seems like, she says to you, or like, you hear in her song that she agrees. And she holds you tighter to her. And you both start to sink down into the water. And you all of a sudden realize that you can't breathe anymore. Is there something you'd like to do about that?
Yeah. I think I will sort of like try to push away from her to like look at her face. But like at first it's sort of the like you're holding me too tight, like I can't expand my lungs, like type of like pushing away. I imagine that at a certain point, like that doesn't work. In which case, like I think it will probably be more of like an actual struggle of trying to like break away from her.
Yeah, fair. Do break
Uh,
away.
Strength, probably.
Yeah. If you're just
I think I'm just trying to break away. So,
yeah.
so that would be 3. Um, and the loss of air is not actually coming from uh, her wrapping her arms around me. It's coming from the lack of gills, right?
Yeah. Like she's not crushing the life out of
Right,
you.
right.
She's just holding you underwater.
Cool. All right, then I've got 3 dice. We'll see how this goes. No, I got 1 success.
All right. Do you want to take the failure? Or are you going to spend a point of ferocity?
Let's spend 1 point of ferocity. So I'll go down to 2.
All right. So you break away from her, and would you just start swimming to the surface to get some air?
Yeah, I think I start swimming towards the surface to get some air. Like that's the first and the most important priority.
All right. You hear her call after you. Grayson, you have gotten on deck with Nick. When you see Saffron, who's in the water, kind of look around really panically and then disappear.
Christ. Yeah, I mean, like, they wouldn't say Christ. I don't think that's a thing for them, but they would just be like, shit. And they would just sort of like sit down, like look at the water, kind of wait for. Can they see Echo? Has Echo popped up?
Not yet, but you do see like where Saffron was pulled under. You see like turbulence under the water. Like even at one point, maybe you see like a couple fingers trying to reach up, and then they're yanked down again.
Oh shit! Yeah, Grayson's just like, God damn it, and stands up and like dives back in the water and goes to try and see what's up with Saffron and Echo.
Okay. What are you doing with Nick?
Nick disappeared.
Nick's in your hands. Like you got him on deck.
You said Nick disappeared though. Wait, who disappeared? I'm sorry. Then I didn't follow.
Saffron did I say Nick? Saffron disappeared underwater.
Okay.
I
thought. Yeah. Okay. So Nick is there. Is Nick breathing?
Oh no. Okay. I'm so sorry. Let me just. So Saffron was in the water, treading water.
Yes.
You got on board with Nick.
Nick. Yeah.
Saffron disappeared underwater.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Rad.
And there you saw the little fingers of Saffron trying to get back up.
Great.
But failed. That's where you are
all
now.
Delightful. Okay. I think that first Grayson would do like a quick assessment to make sure that Nick was in like a safe position, and they were away from all of the water, and they were like not in immediate danger.
Yeah, like you put them on the deck of a ship, on the deck of the ship, and kind of like on their side, I guess, like instinctively maybe.
Sure.
And then you, yeah, they seem to be safe, like as safe as one can be on the deck of a ship with no one around them.
Naturally. Okay, yeah. Then Grayson is just like shit cakes and jumps in the water.
All right, you jump in the water. You head over to where Saffron is.
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
What's the most beautiful person you've ever seen?
I think that the most beautiful person that Grayson has ever seen is probably an ancient portrait of the Queen that gave the library to the
Cool.
people. Yeah. Yeah. Probably that. So sort of, this sort of pseudo historical, pseudo mythic figure that gave this library. So whether it was like a portrait or a sculpture or a bust or whatever, that's definitely like, I think that's always been an ideal for Grayson.
So that queen is there, and she is just gently holding Saffron, actually. Like Saffron is her daughter type, like very motherly holding her. That's what you see in front of you.
Grayson's very confused, but I think Grayson, how does Saffron look? Is Saffron panicked, or are they struggling, or are they calm?
Yeah, you resisted the song, right? So like you see this image, kind of like this very peaceful, like queenly image, kind of like holding her air type thing. And for a moment you kind of blink and you see a struggle and like kind of just like violence in the water, and Saffron like just struggling and scratching. And then again you blink again and you kind of see this peaceful image.
Okay, I think that is more than enough for Grayson to just kind of go into like a weird assassin mode, right? Where they sort of slide into the darkness again, the liminal space, to try and figure out if this is another place that things are not quite what they seem, in addition to like using their scarf swords. And they're just going to swim over as fast as they can and try and grab. And they are attempting to sort of grab Saffron and also harm the entity that is there.
Okay.
That's their goal.
I think that's a lot. Like, like I think, well, okay, sure. Um,
Whatever, whatever piece you want to focus on, but that's kind of what they're doing. I think that their primary goal is to obviously get Saffron away safe, but they think the best way to achieve that is probably by harming the entity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, like then they'll like drop. Okay, sounds good. You can only use your approach or your talent though. So I guess you're using your swords, your fluffy sword things. Go ahead.
All right. What else should I roll for this?
I mean, I would argue, because you're trying not to hit Saffron at the same time, like dexterity, right? Like, because you're trying to do this in a way that doesn't also stab the little merfolk.
That's true. Okay, cool. So that would be 4d6. Ooh. Yeah, I think that I failed that.
Okay.
But I think that this is a moment where I would spend a point of my ferocity.
All right.
This happen.
At this point, Echo, you're swimming up to see this, because like you swim, like you kind of like, you breach, you get air, and then you kind of like look down and you see this kind of happening. Like you see Grayson running into the water and diving down. And kind of like when you behold what is happening, you see Grayson take one of their cloth swords and stab it, and like I think like stab Quinn in the shoulder. And like Quinn's blood all of a sudden starts to kind of just like seep into the water, and she cries out for you. But you get this blinking thing where you also see um Grayson kind of grabbing Saffron, right? And like grabbing them to them, kind of protectively almost. You know what I mean? Like they're protecting Saffron from Quinn.
And like I mean, I resisted the first siren song. So like I can tell that even though it's Quinn, it's not actually Quinn.
Yeah, you get the same blinks as Grayson did. So like, you see for a moment kind of just like this flash of movement. Though the both of you can't really make out what these creatures are if they're not your loved ones or your ideals, basically. But you can tell that they're not them, right? Like they're wearing their face.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna like go towards Grayson and Saffron and just like try to help them like pull Saffron up to the surface and maybe get to the boat, like so that we can get out of the water, and hopefully that will help.
Okay. So you're both gonna just get to the nearest ship, basically, that Grayson jumped off of.
Yeah, like where Nick currently is.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. I would like a check from both of you to get there, or you can actually make the check for the both of you as well with an assistance from Echo, since what happens to one will happen to both anyway. So
Sure. So I've got sounds like strength. It feels like strength to me.
yeah, just getting through strength or stamina.
Cool. Well, we'll see how this goes. Let's clear those dice. And I got 2 successes.
Okay. You get everyone to the ship, or like, you all are swimming there. And as you get onto the ship, are you both pulling Saffron on there as well? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you pull Saffron onto the ship. She's never they've never been on like kind of land before. So they kind of really flop awkwardly there. Kind of not really knowing what to do with themselves and their body weight and everything. But they kind of crawl towards Nick, like towards their friend, and kind of like huddle there. As you both turn to see 3 kind of swirling figures almost come out of the water. And these figures have a face, but they're kind of like a swirling mass of kelp and barnacles. And they take a form which is familiar to the both of you. They're all kind of like wearing the queen's face or Quinn's face, but it shimmers and it changes. And they're singing, and they're noticing that their song isn't working on you. So one of them kind of steps forward, and you hear through the song this creature wanting to know why you're here.
I mean, Grayson has no idea why they're here, so they are probably not the best ones to answer this. But I think Grayson is sort of like kneeling on the edge of the ship, and they would sort of look around, and they were just like, I mean, their big goal is that the plural they, in this sense. Echo and Grayson's goal here is to find what is calling to them, and what can you help me out with what happens when we as wanderers find something that calls to us? Like, is it a sense of relief or like a wholeness, or?
Yeah, so basically what happens is you've both experienced this now. You've experienced something called a break. So normally what happens is you'll name a fragment. So for example, Yoshi would have named not being able to save those people as a fragment, and that would have put him into a break. And he actually gets resonance. And what resonance is, it means that it's closer to you finding out who you are. And the more resonance you have, the more death marks you unlock. So those kind of special abilities. And eventually, when you become kind of like a full person and you remember, you have all your memories, basically, you're able to finally reach your end point. You're able to kind of come to terms with who you are and find an ending. So that's in essence what you're searching for.
Okay, so I think that Grayson would call out, and they're just like, we're trying to find pieces of ourselves. It's been lost and scattered, and we don't mean anyone any harm.
It's in that case, it says, then give us back the boy.
And Grayson looks at Nick and looks at Echo and looks back and is like, why is he different?
They give you actually like a little bit of a flash, like through the song. And you kind of see it almost in memories and in a voice kind of narrating it. But you see kind of Nick going through these phases of playing on the ship that he was on the outside, and then eventually the whole scene of him basically going down to his parents finding him going to bed, and then the ship sinking, and everyone drowning. And you see that these creatures in one of these scenarios, because it just loops and it happens over and over and over again. At one point, one of these creatures, which is kind of trolling through the halls, watching all this happen, happens to touch Nick. And that's the moment when he wakes up and kind of becomes aware of what's happening. And that's kind of what you get of like, why is he special, basically, that they kind of convey that to you.
Mm-hmm. I think that does Echo know this as well? Is Echo part of this revelation, or is it just Grayson?
Yeah, well, they're like that. This is just how they communicate. It's kind of like a mixture of song and pictures. So they communicate this to the both of you.
Okay, yeah, I think that Grayson like looks at Nick and then looks back at the three people there, and they would just sort of shake their head a little bit and shrug and just be like, this is where he belongs. Maybe we should let them have him.
I just like, I look at Grayson and I look at the three and I'm like, why do you need the ship to drown? Do you need all of those people to drown again and again and again?
Yes, we enjoy it.
Why are none of the other ships doing this?
As the sun moves across the sky, each has its time.
Why do we only see this one ship?
The creature seems like it doesn't know how to answer your question.
I think that Grayson would look back to Echo and shrug, and it's either like it. I mean, it's either I don't know what happens if we try and say no to them.
And I'm just like, I don't either, but
Is it even worth it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about all the rest of the people, but Nick, I mean, even if he is a ghost, seems alive enough. And just, I don't know how I feel about people who take enjoyment of watching those people drown over and over again.
And Grayson, you know, Grayson would shrug and just be like, it doesn't feel as if they've trapped anything here but a memory.
At this point, one of the creature speaks up, and it says, "You want the boy?"
And then I think Grayson sort of just like makes a face behind their veils and turns back to Echo and is just like, "Do you really want to be responsible for a weird ghost kid? Really? Deep down?"
And I think I see the face and I'm like, we don't really want to, but kind of feel like we maybe need to. And I think I turn to the three. I'm like, yes, we want the boy.
It says, "Then let one of the things you're searching for live here." And you get the sense that these three creatures want one of your memories. The two, basically, you both have two memories at this point. They want one of them.
And I look at them and I look at Nick and I look at Saffron, who has clearly made friends with Nick. And I'm like, okay, you can have one of my memories, but you'll take Nick out of this penance that he's been put in.
Yes.
What do you need me to do?
All right. I will ask you, you feel them sifting through your memories, and there's only two that you have, Echo. One's meeting Quinn and one's losing her. Which one do you want to give them?
They seem to enjoy losing people like that things. So I think I'm actually going to keep the one losing Quinn and lose the one about meeting her.
Okay. In that case, they pull this memory out of you. Basically, you move a little bit away from the group, and the three figures kind of start swirling around you. And do you see this happen, Grayson? They kind of break apart into their elements, like the kelp and the barnacles and these kind of moving faces, and they start swirling around. And you relive this memory again, right? And at every part of you reliving this memory, right down to the quake, you know, all of a sudden there's a quake and you're trapped, and the darkness that you're in gets lighter. And even at some point where, like, you know, I remember you and Quinn were walking out and like walking people home. As you're walking next to her, you realize you're walking alone, and then you're not walking at all. You're just standing on the deck, and you kind of see this swirling ball moving up. And um, they place it down in a kind of empty space in the water, and you see kind of almost like this floating piece of rubble, and there's two people hunched over there, and it's basically like you and Quinn. you know, like for the first time, like making eye contact and realizing that you're okay and you're safe. And you, for the life of you, can't remember this ever happening. At this point, one of the creatures moves over, and once they see it happening, they indeed, like what you said, like they're interested because it's novel, but they don't seem as interested as they do in like the distant screams that you hear. Um, but they are true to their word, and one of them comes over and, like, you know, these kind of moving masks of faces, they kind of pull one off and they place it over Nick's face. Um, and you see kind of a mask form over his face, and he's able to stand up, though he's kind of still like this ghostly shape with a mask. Um, and he kind of just like coughs and looks around um at you, Grayson, who's on deck with Nick.
Yeah, I think Grayson sort of turns to Nick and is just like, how do you feel?
Okay. Thank you, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Take a seat.
All right. At this point, basically, the three creatures make like they make way so you can leave this place. And yeah, do you get going?
Yeah, Grayson for sure just like leaves, but they're also like very aware, and their scarves are pointy.
Cool. You guys get going, and I think basically the last thing like on this scene basically is just that you see two people huddled together on a piece of floating rubble having a conversation that someone cannot remember. Um, and I think this is a good time to stop the session and go to epilogues, actually. I will go to I'll ask some leading questions, and then we can round up your characters as well, since we have a little bit of time anyway. I think I'll go to Yoshi first, and then I'll just switch back between the both of you. Yoshi, do you guys stay much longer, or do you leave after this?
I think we stay a little bit, but not much longer. So a couple of days, but I think then we take off. I think maybe at least for Echo, it's definitely like whatever the thing that was calling me, I think is not calling me anymore. Whether I found it in that memory or left something else behind and it's no longer calling.
Fair. Linda, do you take Nick with you? Or
I think that I have it. They take Nick to Lehman.
Yeah.
And Nick can breathe underwater, right? Nick's cool with that.
And Nick's a ghost still. Ghost with a mask.
Neato. Ghost with mask. Can breathe underwater. Yeah, so I think that Grayson takes Nick to Lehman and tries to see if Lehman wants. It's just like, so it's not, I know that you can never replace what you've lost, but maybe you can always make room for another. And they're sort of trying to encourage Lehman to like Adopt Nick.
Okay, so you leave Nick with Lehman,
Yeah.
and kind of like in place of the child that Lehman, well, not in place of, but all right. Um, Lehman doesn't really know, I think, how to deal with a two-legged creature, but seems to accept it.
Great.
And Nick's all about it, right? Like Nick's living his best Little Mermaid life.
Yeah, I get to hang out with Saffron all the time, and now he gets to really be Aquaman and Aqualad, possibly. Like, yeah, he's going off about it, and Grayson is just like, well, congratulations, you're now in the Justicers leagues, I suppose. Neat. And Grayson just like pats him on the head.
Cool. That is awesome. So you both leave the limbo and you meet up with your crew. And now is awesome time for an epilogue for your characters as we round up the session. And I will indeed start with Echo.
Do you have any guidance on like what this epilogue looks like in terms of like what I should be trying to describe?
You can describe maybe a couple more memories that your character finds, or whether you think that Echo is Echo going to lose hope? Was this only the start of Echo losing hope on their journey, or not? Or
I think what we see is like Echo, like if this is like a montage type thing, is I think you see Echo gaining a bunch of more memories of them, maybe like as a kid, and like where they got separated from their family and like why they weren't really close with their family, but then finding other people and so on to be like their new found family. And I think eventually you find we get the memory of Echo, who probably died in one of like the disasters that happened, one of those earthquakes that hits the city type thing. And I think after that, you see a change in Echo, and there's still more memories for Echo to find, but it's almost like they realize that they have things unfinished because they didn't die, like they died relatively young in one of these disasters. And so like even though they don't necessarily have a lot more memories to find, you still see them like wandering around Tenebris, like looking and trying to help other people. Like even if they get to the point where they have enough resonance or whatever to move on, like they don't follow that path. They just like keep walking in limbo.
ooh, I like that. All right, and Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, I think that Grayson continues along the path, like the sort of accepted path of the wanderers here, and gets more memories. And I think Grayson probably realizes that at some point they served the royal house. Maybe not the ancient queen that gifted the library, but maybe like a princess or a lesser lord or a noble or something like that. And they served as kind of like a hand person, like a handmaid, more or less. But also like a lot of those ancient courts had handmaids that were also like really deadly and like assassins and shit. So I think I think Grayson was like a super cool Bedouin handmaiden for one of those ancient princesses in Morocco, but was also just like a super cool assassin at the same time. We just get more thoughts and memories and feelings about her life and sort of the duty and honor of like working for the royal house, but also kind of a lot of how upset they were with a lot of what happened in their country and stuff like that, which eventually led them to like being exiled, which is when they found the library. I think that's how they move through the story. So I think at the very end, they do eventually collect enough resonance to leave, and the doorway looks like a library.
Awesome. I love that. Very cool. Well, I think I am going to take our live session off now. Thank you both so much for playing. Thank you for everyone who watched. And bye.